Hope everyone's doing okay. Uh, Thank you for having your cameras on. I know Jai in South Australia is a little bit bandwidth challenged in there. Um, so I asked you a question last week. Did anyone have a chance to think about it or to meditate a little bit on what we were discussing? I think I gotta just look for a second. Doesn't
It
matter
was where do we experience sound?
exactly. So did anyone examine that? You can unmute if you like. Maybe no one did.
Yes. I had a question first before I
Sure.
maybe
Yeah.
share.
Cool.
Just clarification,
Hmm.
because so when we say ear consciousness,
Yes.
is that based on the definitions? Is it part of the mind or separate? Okay, it's part
Okay.
of the mind.
Okay. Good question. Thank you. And I do invite questions, as you know, I think. Okay, let me just get oh, it's having my okay. Okay. Okay, you can see this, right? Slides coming up. Okay, good.
Yes.
So Cynthia or everybody, so let's start from just to review this really quickly, is that a living being, um, we could say that all living beings, so that means beings of the six realms, the hell realms, the spirit realm, the animal realm, the human realm, the two celestial realms, sorry, uh, are composed of a body and a mind. And I'm wondering for people who might have the thought, I don't know what you've covered. I'm sorry, I apologize. Did you cover the six realms? Have you covered the six realms? No. Yes and no. Okay, Matt, six realms covered or not?
I know about them, but I don't think they were covered in the course.
Okay. And Zayla, right? Zayla, yeah. You've been to a lot of
Um,
classes so far, probably.
yeah, I'm aware of them, but I don't think in this group,
The-
I don't think we've gone through the six realms.
Okay.
The
So you'll go through them some another module, I suppose. So every living being, every living unenlightened being dwells within one of the six realms of existence. So we are dwelling in the human realm, and what we have is a human mind and a human body. Okay. Uh, there is a definition that's similar to that. Remember, I mentioned that everything has a definition practically in Buddhist theory. And actually, the definition of a human being is that who possesses a human mind. So it's kind of sounds a bit like a cop out. But anyway, so we have the six realms. Three usually considered unfortunate realms, and the reason they're considered unfortunate is very you can't really, for the most part, you can't develop any kind of controlled thought. You're completely controlled by the power of your experience, which is due to your karma. For the most part, that's everybody in samsara is, but there's no in the three lower realms, there is really very, very little uh, there's very little capacity for control. Okay, when we talk about control, we're talking about controlling the mind. So we do have that capacity. I mean, you could even call it free will, but we don't actualize free will much, but we have the capacity to. Where we say is in the in the lower realms, even you just look at the animal realm, you know, uh, if we're leaving for the day, we can't tell our dog or a cat, I've left food for you in the cupboard and just go to the cupboard and open it up when you're hungry and eat it. It doesn't have that kind of conceptual thinking. It does have some kind of reactive, it has a mind, it responds, as do spirits and hell beings and all the animals and all the beings. Now, the reason I'm getting a long answer, I guess I always do that, but the living being consists of a body and a mind. Okay, so just to be provocative, we do not call plants sentient because while they may be a living, so maybe I should use sentient mean, but we generally say that plants do not possess a mind. Okay, they have a body, but they don't have a mind, which means they don't have an experiencer. Okay. Now, people always say, yeah, but when you water them, they grow, or when you get close to them, the plants have feelings and that sort of thing. And we won't go into a debate about that, but just reacting to things doesn't make something sentient, doesn't mean it has a mind. Okay. The clouds react to the wind and the atmosphere and so on. They don't possess mind. Okay. Now, when I say everything is possessed of body, every sentient being, a living being that has it, part of what the definition of sentient means is having a mind. Okay, Cynthia? So, now what about the body part? Well, the reason I brought about the six realms is you do have these very, very high, the highest existence in samsara are in the celestial realms, and the highest one of those highest ones are referred to as the formless realm. And they're referred to the formless realm because they supposedly have no form. They don't have a body. Okay, they're just mental beings. And it's good just to remember that is true. However, on a very subtle level, they do have a subtle body. Very, 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 very subtle body. Okay? So, when we talk about the mind, generally speaking, we'll talk about human mind. The human mind is often delineated or segmented into these different functions. Okay? So just say mind, which, as you remember from our definition, I hope you remember, mind means, okay, so we'll go back. So mind is clear, okay, like the sky. But it's not only that, okay? It also cognizes. This is not the definition, sorry. It also, so these first two bullet points, if you remember, are the definition. It's clear, but it cognizes. So space is clear, but it doesn't cognize. Okay? And we could, yeah. So a plant actually, for example, the belief is it doesn't cognize. Now, although it's very, just as a footnote, it's not encouraged to go around killing plants or trees and that stuff because there are many beings who dwell in those bodies, so to speak, in those. So there could be a type of spirit. There's a naga that lives in trees, for example. If you kill the tree, you don't kill the naga, and that's one of the because it's more like it's more like the trees is more like its abode, its house. Okay, but nonetheless, we don't go around killing and harming plants because and also there's all the insects and all kinds of beings that you could be harming. Okay, now not the same as necessarily held true with rocks, for example. Although there are beings, I'm sure, that inhabit rocks as well. So when we talk about a person, we're talking about this thing. And these five groups are just really two groups. It's just the physical body and a mind. But as Buddhists, as meditators, as people wishing to attain to attain a fully free existence, the free existence is defined by a free mind. Okay, a mind that's not encumbered, a mind that's not under the control of well, in this case, under the control of an unbalanced mind. And so we got to get more clear on what an unbalanced mind is, and that's where you look at this and you see that, well, the mind, when it functions with these qualities. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and go into more detail on this. So I want to make sure, Cynthia, was there more to your question?
No, that helps. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? So
Also,
when we talk about, yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I thought because you were talking the red flower, but if you change subjects, then I won't
No,
share my
no, go ahead.
red.
I want to
Okay.
know where did you find the
Oh, yeah.
origin?
So that the reason I asked that question is because first off, I did encounter the same challenge that Jai asked you last week, which was the intellect comes in because I'm more of a thinking person than a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to not try not to think about it, I've the experience like the when I say red flower, I'm that experience for me is me, I right. I'm see well, so I know because you gave two examples, red flower and then hearing. But the red flower, as I see it, is me, Cynthia, is seeing the red flower.
Right.
So that's why I asked that. Is that my eye consciousness that's determining that? So that's where I went to say, like in your object, you had that graph about the interdependence.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that it's instantaneous. I
Yes.
see it, so it's instantaneous, but it's my eye seeing it, but I'm thinking it's my mind that's actually saying it's red and it's a flower. Otherwise, there won't be a label. And
That,
this is where I'm applying now my Buddhist knowledge that I at the moment I see it, something labeled it, and that's where I'm like, I'm not sure if that's my eye consciousness or that there's an overall mind saying, well, okay, this is the
mm-hmm.
label. That's the label for that.
Okay.
That's yeah.
Yeah, I understand. And that's where we're kind of going in this class, is to understand a little bit better how the mind functions. And then the mind, in a sense, creates samsara, right? It creates our reality. Mind creates our reality, and but how, and they think about what's the mechanism for that, how does it do that? That's where that's the power of the study that we're doing, right? The study we're involved in. But all of the study is just so that you can go meditate, because there's not really any realizations with study. Okay. If it were all we'd have to do is read this stuff and then we'd have the realization, but it doesn't happen that way, right? And the Buddhists know this, for 2,500 years. I'm not saying they're the only ones that know it, but they know it. And so when we think about what else is there other than just knowledge, right? Well, for the Buddhist, experience is what is there besides knowledge. Experience. So what we're talking about now, that mechanism, that not so much mechanism, but that function of how we perceive the red flower becomes an experience. What you just described, and more subtle, is experienced. Okay, now, but you first sort of do need the intellectual background, because how do you meditate on that? How do you won't make any sense of it. It's a little bit like, I'm sure, when you take psychedelics, or other things, you can have these experiences, but you don't make sense of them. It's hard to make sense of them. Now, when there's made, so we talked about impermanence last week. We talked about this functioning. So the whole purpose of all this that we're talking about and all this study is so you can leave this, in a sense, and you're going into meditation, and you have a complete encyclopedia of what's correct and not correct, because all of us, all of us will have to make that leap. from academic, intellectual, logical understanding to experiential. And there are some Buddhist approaches, some teachers that go much more towards the experiential. They weigh more heavily on the experiential. This the Gelug school, it weighs more heavily on having the correct intellectual understanding before diving deep into experience. Because the experience you can have, and you won't, for some people, it's difficult to make sense of it. For example, I'll give you a kind of a pretty profound example. Um, I was talking about those four formless existences, which are actually based upon four. They're different meditations, like meditating on infinite space is one of them. Meditating on pervading consciousness, another one. So when people are meditating who are not even actually high meditators, what happens is because they don't have the refined logical foundation when they go into meditation, you can end up meditating on the wrong object. You think it's the right one, but it's the wrong one. Or you meditate. I've had students tell me, or other people tell me that they've realized emptiness, you know, and I have to be very careful because I can be, you know, uh, yeah. I mean, I don't want to discourage them, but that's always a bit of a shock when people tell me that. Not that people can't realize emptiness. I don't mean that. But I know from what they tell me, they don't have much of a robust understanding of what emptiness is. And I had one guy tell me privately, he told me a couple weeks ago, and I says, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Oh, it's the space between the two breaths." Okay. He didn't study, he didn't have much study. He had studied online, he studied, Dzogchen and these higher level, you know, practices, but without any firm foundation in the fundamental teachings. Okay. So I felt I had to let him know that I didn't think that was it. That's not according to our understanding. The space between the two breaths is space, you know. So there are meditators that actually mistake emptiness with space, and they can spend thousands and billions of years meditating on space. And when that meditation ends, they just come back to where they were or worse. Okay? That's why we can't undervalue uh, proper understanding and study. However, we can go too much that extreme also, right? Okay, and a lot of us do. Okay, is that helpful? I don't know if it's helpful or not. Okay. Okay, so this is where I'm gonna yeah, let's go ahead on this. Okay, we did that. We did this. This is another. And then this is what Cynthia you're referring to. This is an experience. This is perception. You cannot have a perception without a consciousness. Can you? Can't. You can't, and this is probably new, you can't have a perception without a sense organ. That includes the mental sense organ or mental power, okay? Let's just leave that one. Just know that, let's just call this, just it's not accurate, but let's just call the mental sense organ the brain, okay? We call it the brain for right now. And then it's interesting because you could have a consciousness and you can have a sense organ, but you need an object, or there's no experience, okay? So you see this interdependency? Now, why I asked you to do that explore with that meditation is when if you are thinking about when we experience it, like right now you're hearing my voice, right? The mind automatically believes, okay, believes without thinking so much. It believes that my voice is outside of you. Okay. Well, my voice is outside of you. But the experience that we have is not the actual experience is this interdependent flow, isn't it? But we don't, well, I should say me. I don't experience the world internally. I think that I see you guys there on the screen. I don't I don't experience you from the point of view of the consciousness, right? Because the consciousness is also experiencing you on the screen, right? My eye is experiencing you on the screen, and the object is out there. But the way we go through our world and our life, if you're like me, is that it's all out there, right? But I mean, what percentage is out there and what percentage is in here? Anyone want to guess? No one wants to guess. That's because one of my stupid questions. It doesn't it doesn't I don't know what the answer is. But in terms of sort of unconscious experience, so we go through minute to minute, second to second, okay? My point is that 100% of it is out there. Now, it might be different when you start like feeling a feeling like depression or emotion, depressed, then you kind of get very in here, right? Okay. Now, with depression or fear or joy or fortitude or confidence, right? Then what you're talking about is consciousness, the sense organ of the mental consciousness, which we're just going to call brain for the moment, and an object. Ah, what's the object? Okay, that's interesting, isn't it? We'll take depression or sadness because that's easy. So when something during this during this cycle, okay, there's a lot more that's still going on. Okay, what's happening also, excuse me. What's happening also is, remember, okay, so what's happening also is you're having a feeling or a sensation. Okay, remember this. Feelings, mental factors, consciousness, discrimination, and body, right? So excuse me. So you're hearing my voice. Your consciousness, your ear consciousness is because your eye consciousness, well, it's seen the screen, but your ear consciousness, your eye consciousness can't hear, doesn't reflect the sound of my voice. And the ear consciousness does not reflect the sight of the screen. Okay? Those are separate functions. Though your consciousness cannot see things, okay, for ordinary people. Okay. And vice versa, and not vice versa, and in addition to the eye consciousness, nose consciousness, taste consciousness, and tactile. Okay, but whatever consciousness and whatever organ and whatever object, it's basically the same process as what we're talking about. So when you're having this cycle going on, we also, it automatically generates a sensation. And I'll explain something. I don't know how technical to get. I don't know how detailed. If I get too detailed, just stop me, okay? Because I just get. So in that one about the 51 mental factors. So if we just had six consciousnesses, right? And so what we'd be doing, we'd just be having bare experience, right? We wouldn't say, oh, that's a pretty flower. Okay, but we do say all those things constantly. And with every experience, there is a feeling, a sensation. Whether it's even when you're sleeping, right? When we're dreaming, it's the mental consciousness experiencing through the mental sense organ an object which is a dream. Even now there are 51 mental factors. For example, there are five that are always present. Always, even when you're in a coma. Even when you're dying and well, they go subtle, but when you begin to enter your next rebirth, these five always present, they're called. And two of them are discrimination and feeling. Okay? And there's three others. I don't want to overwhelm you with detail. Okay? Those five are always there. So it's not just six consciousnesses, it's not just an object, and it's not just a sense organ. Yes, those are the doors of perception. But accompanying them in the very next instant, accompanying them is a sensation. Okay? So the sensation are going to be only three kinds. It's going to be an agreeable sensation, a disagreeable one, or neutral. Okay, now some people call these like comfortable sensation, uncomfortable, and neutral, or uh, mm, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. I just get the main thing is to get the feeling. So on a very, 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 very micro level, on a level that we're not perceiving, we're having those feelings each instant. And we have zillions of instances, don't we? Actually, I can't remember the number. I think it's 283. One text says 283 mental activities in the split in a split second. There's 283 uh, impressions, experiences, flashes. But I think that's a bit I think it's just a way of linear. Because anyway, so with each of those 283 in a split second, in a snap of fingers, there's feeling, okay, and that's agreeable, disagreeable, neutral. The meditator, and you will do this if you haven't already, your mind, when we quiet our minds through the development of single pointed concentration, we have a direct experience of this. So this is not just intellectual. These are what the yogis have said, hey, this is what happens. How do I know? I experienced it. Having that experience is called a realization, not an insight. Insight is what we get sometimes. Realization is something that goes deeper and actually changes your view of the world and yourself. Okay? In other words, once you have realization, you can never not have that belief. That may be a generalization, over exaggeration, because you can always fall from you can. So once you have the realization, you can lose it, of course. But that realization is something of a depth that's not of the same quality as an insight. Okay? For example, you can have insights through contemplation, but I believe realizations are going to happen through meditation or direct experience, maybe is a better way to put it. Direct experience. Okay? So you see you're walking down the street, you see someone coming. Your eye consciousness is focusing on catches this person coming towards you. Or let's say it's a dog. Say the dog that coming towards you, and fear arises. Seems to happen instantly, right? It hasn't happened instantly, really, right? We have these 283 imprints that are happening in a split seconds, and then you have a lot of those between the where the dog you see the dog and where it's coming towards you has been probably, I don't know, tens of thousands of those flashing imprints. Okay? We don't even pick that up. We see a solid dog walking towards us, right? We don't see an impermanent dog. Isn't that fascinating? That dog is impermanent. It's moving a million miles an hour and changing, as is we are, as our mind is as well. Because we've just had 283 experiences in an instant. And that dog coming towards us probably covered, I don't know, several hundred instances, right? Because I don't know, that's not even a second. So we've had a lot of experiences by the time that dog, in just seeing that dog walking towards us. And all those instances have generated feelings, okay? Either agreeable, disagreeable, or neutral. So, um, so let's say, so Robert and I are walking together down the street, and a German Shepherd comes walking towards us, okay? We both are having our own experiences with that German Shepherd. Although, if we feel that our experiences are the same, then he might say to me, "Hey, hey, whoa, let's give that dog some space." It's a German Shepherd. Okay? But but if our experiences are different, so let's say I got bit by a German Shepherd when I was 7 years old. And let's say that Robert raised German Shepherds from the time he was 7 years old. The German Shepherd is the same German Shepherd, essentially, right, on a relative plane that's coming towards us, but our experiences are completely different. And I say, no, those dogs are really, let's say pit bull, because I had one. Let's say a pit bull, that's even better. So I say to him, because the pit bull I had was really nice. So we're going to switch roles, Robert. So, uh, this pit bull's coming over towards, and I kind of go down on one knee to pet it, and he's backing off. It's the same pit bull, but our experience is that that pit bull is bad, or that pit bull is cute, right? And I say, no, no, come on, Robert, he's cute. And then Robert's, no, 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 he's bad. He's vicious. That's how we go through the world. That's the experience of samsara. Because both of us make conclusions based upon, in this example, I mean, in this little conversation around, based upon a feeling, right? And my feeling is based upon my past imprints. That's called karma. His feeling is based on his past. It's called karma. Those neural pathways that we talk about in psychology now are a good metaphor for karma. They're not the same, but they're related. Okay? Neural pathways are something physical and karma is something mental, so it's not physical. So you see how just by this feeling of agreeable, disagreeable, neutral, okay, we're experiencing the pit bull walking towards us. Okay? And this is in every single little experience. We're having it right now. We're doing this right now. Okay? Okay. Okay, now I got to jump a ways because I made. Okay. 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 Any questions? Because I'm going to go, and we're going to transition now into a little more detail of these mental factors. Hang on a second. I'm going to. Any questions? Any clarity? Any welcome, William? Um, Jai, sometimes you can get us started. I don't want to put you on the spot. Everything clear?
I just have a quick question. Um, are we going to are you going to go into what I'm curious about is how do I stop that judgment? How do I stop that? That's what I'm wondering. Are you going to go into that? Because I'm curious.
I think everyone is. I think everyone. Uh, well, hmm. No, we'll talk about it, of course. Um, so when we talk about stopping it, we're talking about practicing the path. I don't care, and that's the traditional way of saying it. But how to stop it is really what we should spend most of our time talking about, right? And I think that this approach with this discovering Buddhism and the Gelug approach is they would say traditionally, you can't stop it until you know what it is. And so they're saying basically, let's explain to you what it is. The it is very extensively explained, right? There's so many different angles, and I mean, everyone here, I think, has spent time in different modules or all the modules of Buddhism, and I have a slide before I finish that will address your question a little more specifically. Yes. Anything else? Anyone else?
I
It's just,
don't, I,
yeah, go ahead.
I can ask questions, but sometimes I feel they're just taking us down different paths um, that may not be helpful. But it's like, what is the difference between sensation and feeling? I mean, for me, um, like for me, feeling or sensation is actually more physical. And then there is also something that I identify as a reaction to an incident, which would be emotional. Okay.
Okay, that's very important. Yeah, no, that's not taking us down the wrong path. So that remember last week, I think I mentioned about in Buddhist thought, in theory, in Buddhist theory and practice. I want to re-emphasize how important it is that terms are defined. So you guys are not of that generation. I'm talking about not in age. You're not of that generation or that culture anymore because you see more and more that terms matter and how they're defined. And I use kind of the term love. You would say, oh, I just love that. I love Yorkshire gold tea. I love Sumatran coffee. I love holidays in Hawaii. So we use it a lot, and what gets me is, I don't know if anyone else more closer to my age, I don't know, anybody, is realizing that now that, I was watching this, I have a confession. Late at night, I watch those cooking competitions, not cooking shows, because I'm not a great cook. The Hell's Kitchen and those kinds of things. Anyone else watch those? Thank you. Thank you. It's the last kind of thing, and I'm in a bit of a pickle right now because I don't have any to watch. I watch all the past seasons and all those kinds of things. So, um, but it was so funny, like this couple weeks ago, but this is very common. This one with what's it called Master Chef. So this guy gets voted off. He loses at the end of the show. Yeah, and there's, I don't know, seven or eight still in. Oh no, like 10 or 11. And when he's leaving, he says, "Love you guys. I really love you guys." And they're like, "Yeah, we love you too, Matthew." Like that. So it's gotten to that. Like, that's okay. I mean, they're being friendly but what does he mean? I love you guys, right? And then same thing with food. I love, sushi, or the same thing with places. I love going to Hawaii. Obviously we know that it doesn't, but it is important as aspiring Buddhists or aspiring practitioners, wherever we are. Love and compassion. Compassion is one of the two, is a cornerstone of Buddhist practice. So, and love and compassion are not that different in the definition. So, it's essential to define our terms. That's my point. And I don't know how I got on that point. So Jai, so that's why I'm trying to spend some time defining these words like feeling. Okay? So emotion, feelings, technically in this context, they're not the same. And I'll go into it, maybe I should go into it more. Okay? I have a lot of material to cover. I know very well because I've been doing this a while that I will cover maybe a tenth of it. Okay, and then you guys maybe I finally get fired. Am I? Okay.
So,
So
Karuna, I'm going to
yeah,
volunteer partially where that question is coming from. When I did this meditation with regards to sound, it's like what I identified as pleasant or unpleasant. It
yeah.
felt like there was an emotional aspect to it,
Hmm.
not just an intellectual aspect.
Okay.
So,
I'll,
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Hold me to task, okay? Because I hope to cover that.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So with yeah. So what we're talking. So excuse me. I'm kind of. I did some weird. Okay. Okay. Sorry, guys. I realized I left one slide that's going to come later, which I should have now. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about the delusions. Okay. Excuse me, I'm sorry, a little jumpy, but I created a whole new added all these things. Okay. So when we talk about, so what we're talking about is there are the unwholesome mental factors or the delusions that are always often referred to. Okay. So we'll just go slowly now. So, in, oh, so, and then yeah, okay, I'm going to jump around. So this is sort of like the definition so that we have our we're understanding things together. Okay, we're going to have shared understanding. So one of the main texts that we look at in the Abhidharma is Abhisamaya Alankara. There's many texts that define the delusions, but we're just doing this is an actual kind of not a definition, but this explains it well, and it's just so that you and I can have this. We're going to go forward with the same understanding. So Maitreya just defined. Okay, delusions destroy yourself, destroy others, and destroy your morality. So that's why we're talking about delusions. They they decrease qualities of livelihood, are despised by Buddhas and protectors. They bring arguments, disrepute, birth in places of no leisure, degeneration of attainments and non-attainments. Okay, and the experience of great suffering. That's very traditional. That's very traditional. Okay, we're going to move beyond that, or we're going to move in a different way. So, according to Buddhism, the best way, Zela, of working with disturbing emotions is a middle way between two unskillful ways. Between two unskillful ways of dealing with them. The two extremes, suppressing or denying the emotions, okay, or letting our mind be controlled by the emotions and acting them out. So those are considered those are the typical way people work with their emotions, right? They suppress them or repress them, or they just get controlled and driven by them, right? If you feel anger, some people go, okay, I just should hold it in. I know it's going to become a fight. I'm not going to talk about it with him or her, or get in the fight. Okay. Or attachment, desire. I really, I'm very attracted to this woman or this man, and I know that he's married or she's married, and but then, I got to suppress these emotions, and you go and I don't know what you do, right? Go away, whatever. That doesn't, or you act on them. Okay, that was just two. And then the skillful way and the Buddhist way is that we acknowledge their existence, admitting that we're angry when we are angry, to avoid suppressing them. Okay? Working on them within our mind by applying antidotes either to dissolve the emotions or to transform the mind from a negative to a positive state, to avoid acting out the emotions and thus to avoid harming oneself and others. We'll talk about that more, but that's kind of, Zayla, that encompasses and then you got 84,000 different practices, okay, in Buddhism. I think who knows, they say 84,000 delusions, but you get the point. So these will be things like mindfulness or self-awareness, remembering the nature of the mind, being non-judgmental, simple giving and taking, and thousands of others. Okay, so I'm gonna move on, and this can be the subject of another conversation. So Lama had said, and I always quote this, and I think I did in the beginning, of course the human mind has both positive and negative sides, but the negative is transient, very temporary. Your up and down emotions are like clouds in the sky. Beyond them, the real, basic human nature is clear and pure. In advanced meditation practices, the object of meditation one of the objects becomes the clear, pure nature of the mind. And that itself subdues these negative emotions. Now we're going to go, okay. So why are we talking about unwholesome mental factors?
Could I
But
ask a question?
Yeah,
Yeah. Could you go back to that slide about human nature?
that one.
Oh,
That
that
one?
one, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Um, I thought that actually our basic nature is in fact Buddha nature,
That's our potential.
but it's within us, is it not?
That's our potential. Yeah.
What's the difference between being in us and our potential?
Yana sounds like it's sitting like a little Buddha guy sitting inside of us, ready for us to uncover him. He's already there, fully awakened. Like the big fat one. I don't know.
Okay, so that's one
This
of
is
the
a this is
illusions
a
I clearly have because I
well,
realize,
this is a common misconception. I can't.
yeah,
It's problem with the cultural dialogue. So many things like karma, another one that's thrown out there, but now
yeah,
it's completely
yeah.
misunderstood as an instant.
And I think it's fair to say I've been influenced by other traditions.
Yep.
You
So
know, the Vedanta. Okay,
yes, so has
okay,
everybody.
okay.
And okay, so just to give you so Buddha nature, maybe better called Buddha potential. And this is not in the scope of this class. Doesn't even, I don't, well, it's okay. So this is Nirvana because this class is Samsara and Nirvana. So Nirvana, one way of just being loosely define it. So the mind itself is clear and pure, okay? And but we haven't discovered that. It's there. So Jai, in that case, yes, it is. It's there all the time. But that's not Buddha nature, okay? What happens is when we meditate on the one thing is when we meditate on the clarity of the mind with a view of reality, which is the emptiness of the inherent existence of the mind, that's our Buddha potential. That itself, when you combine the clarity, purity of the mind with a view of emptiness, that will develop into enlightenment. That could develop in a few months, few years, few lifetimes. Likely, it's not usually one lifetime. It can be, but that's something that develops over many lifetimes. Once you have that, once a person experiences a direct insight into the emptiness of inherent existence, you will continually develop your Buddha potential. You're not going to fall back into any lower realms or anything at that point. You might die when Buddha. Okay, so Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical story about him is that um, it's said that it took him three countless great eons to attain enlightenment. Have people heard that before? Ever heard that? So when he experienced direct, non-conceptual insight into empty nature or the lack of inherent existence was after his first full eon of practicing. So when he experienced direct insight into emptiness or direct insight into reality, at that point, two more eons before he became enlightened. Okay, an eon is a very long time, trillions of years. Okay. Um, okay, I just have to go off camera for just a second. Hang in there. Take a deep breath. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Jai, did I deal with it?
I beg your pardon?
Did I deal with your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Whether I can accept it or not, I'm not sure. And let me just make a quick clarification. If you
Yeah.
could, folks, I prefer Jay to
Oh,
Jai.
that's right. That's right. You told me
Thank
that
you.
at the
Thank you.
time. I so I lived in Nepal a long time, as you know, and uh, when I see Jai, in Nepali, we say Jai, as in Jai Nepal and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Did
I
it come
know.
from that?
No, it actually comes from the French.
Ah, well, I don't speak French.
Me either.
Okay. 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 Okay, so let's go forward here. So this is important. So this is samsara, right? This class is samsara and nirvana. And samsara is a state of mind. It's not a place. Okay, it's not out there. As much as it looks terrible out there, you could say samsara looks bad. It's not it. It's the out there is actually a representation or a manifestation of our own disturbing, unwholesome mental factors. So unwholesome. So we got wholesome and unwholesome. The goal of the of Buddhist of spiritual practice is to develop the wholesome mental factors and to eliminate the unwholesome ones. Unwholesome mental factors. One of the things they disturb the balance of the mind. And the response for every form of suffering and discontent. So whenever you're experiencing, or I'm experiencing something that's unpleasant, we don't like, we're irritated, that is an unwholesome mental factor. Even dying with great pain or fear, still a mental factor. Conceptual mental factors that when arise in the mind cause disturbance and unrest. Some are more subtle. Okay. Some of these disturbing, unwholesome mental factors, they disturb higher states of mind, like those great meditators who are still not enlightened. I mean, in other traditions. Okay. I'm kind of talking fast now because I want to get some material to you. Okay. So when we talk about the unwholesome mental factors, and I don't, remember, just so I can bring it all together. Look at this. So mental factors. I want you to go one, two, three, four, one, two, three, four down, and it says root afflictions. Those are the unwholesome mental factors. And underneath, secondary afflictions, 20. Okay? So that's what we're talking about now. We're not talking about now. See, there's 11 virtuous ones or wholesome ones. Okay? The one that says omnipresent and determining are just mental functions. They're not wholesome or unwholesome. They're just they're just mental functions to help create our experience. And that bottom variable are mental factors that could be good or they could be bad. They could be wholesome or unwholesome. So the ones we're focusing on that really matter. So really, if you take the first one, omnipresent, and the second one, determining, you don't have to pay attention to those. Those are not important for us. Virtuous is important, but we're not dealing with that right now. Okay. But it's good to know they're virtuous ones. They're not all bad. Mental factors does not mean bad. Doesn't mean bad or good. Now, root afflictions kind of means bad, or in simplistic language. Secondary afflictions kind of means bad. Okay. Because they are these. Those 26, 6 root, 20 secondary disturb the balance of the mind. Okay. They're responsible for every form of suffering and discontent or unhappiness. They're conceptual mental factors that, when arising in the mind, cause disturbance and unrest. Some are more subtle. Okay, we'll get to that. So these root ones, which are the secondary mental factors, I'm not going to go into those in this class. It's too much detail. I'll show you what they are, but what we're really interested in and concerned about, actually, the 20 secondary mental factors are just variables of these 6, the way they manifest. For example, you'll see that jealousy is not one of them on here, but jealousy is a pretty strong, disturbing emotion, and jealousy comes under anger, is a subset of anger. Okay. So these 6 root afflictions that all of us should become somewhat familiar with are attachment or craving, anger, which is also hostility or hatred. I'm giving these couple names because they float around in different names in different books, different texts. Self-importance or pride, ignorance and delusion or confusion, afflictive doubt, and afflictive views. Okay. So when the mind is disturbed, which it always is, just there's degrees of disturbance. Some are not very disturbed at all, in very peaceful states, of course. But in those peaceful states, we're still in a deluded state, okay, or an afflicted state. But don't think that these are all just intense sufferings. They're not. They're in fact, those meditators who are caught in the formless realms, caught because they're still in samsara, they have a subtle, not all these, but they have some subtle. They still have afflictions that are affecting them, but they're subtle. Okay, so there's different degrees of subtlety and coarseness. So the root afflictions act as a basis for all intellectual distortions. So and all emotional conflict. They give rise to our actions. So whatever we do is driven by a not everything we do, but most of what we do is driven by an affliction. Okay. They propel us into states of samsara, which just means this ongoing circle or cycle. And I think that for me personally, going back to what Jay said about um, our Buddha nature. So these are the things that are operating instead of our Buddha nature or our Buddha potential. So for me personally, when I think of being in samsara, I think of not being in control. Okay. And not being in control is even more impactful when you feel that there is a possibility to be in control. When you start, when we start having a sense that we could be in control, but I'm not, I think that's a real uh, catalyst to practice. But most of our friends and most of the people we know don't have a sense that there's this non-control or that there can be control. So I often ask students, when I give these classes, particularly with beginners, not this group, but with beginners who are just trying to understand, is there something more? Um, so I ask them, I'm going to go off this for a second. So if we think about like times we're really content, right? Really happy, because we have those, luckily. Then the question comes up, sometimes I ask people, okay, if the class happens once a week, I ask them, okay, can you identify that really peaceful, content place inside of you? And, people connect with it, whatever way they connect, whether it's they think about being in nature or being with their family or being, on holiday or just having a good meditation, do yoga. And then I ask them, okay, so from now until next class, I want you to stay in that state of mind. Right. And then of course next week comes and I ask people how they do. It's like, but it's interesting because I think that even for us who maybe are really engaging in even more profound kinds of happiness, if we're meditating and studying these teachings, and we do get a sense like, or when you're with very spiritual people, beings, teachers, that kind of thing, you get a real sense that more is possible, right? And you get also the feeling, just being with those beings, or it doesn't have to be like a high being. It can be sometimes, you know, your favorite uncle or your grandma who just, or your parents that just love you unconditionally. And sometimes a lot of people, when they're going through so much hardship, they just want to be with their mom, so to speak, or that special caregiver. Why can't we? Now, people will say, well, it's just life. You can't always feel that way, right? Isn't that they say, don't they say that? Isn't that what people would say? It's not realistic to stay there. But the beauty of the spiritual path, the beauty of Buddhist thought as well, is that it argues against that. And not only argues, it says we can prove it to you. There is a state of mind that you can always be in. In that state of mind, whatever you call it, whether you call it nirvana, enlightenment, it's steady. It's not static, but it's steady. It doesn't go up and down. It only goes, in a way, you could say it only goes up, I guess. It's eternal, and it's complete joy. It's complete love. It's complete wisdom. Its love doesn't leave anyone out. It's not biased. That's all comes from eliminating the mind from the power of the afflictions. As simple as that. And the spiritual path is nothing more than eliminating the power of the afflictions. And, uh, in a way, yeah. So when we eliminate certain afflictions, it's very interesting because automatically those virtuous minds, the 11 virtuous minds, start to rise. We all have experienced those 11 virtuous minds, but they're just so hidden. They're so rare. When the delusions, these afflictive emotions, are subdued and eliminated, they are replaced. It just allows. It's a little bit like the clouds. The sun is back behind the clouds. It's always there. So as you eliminate the clouds, of course, the day gets sunny, right, and warm. It's really the same way with these. Now, the added component to that is that not you can make the sun brighter. So yes, the qualities of love and compassion, non-harmfulness, equanimity, joy, they'll start to arise the more the afflictions or delusions are subdued. But then the added thing is you can also enhance them. You can grow them. And that is again what the spiritual path is about. So it's not about just being neutral, right? It's not like that. Getting neutral or balance is the tool to be able to confront the disturbing emotions that are robbing us of our qualities that are hidden, that are hidden or covered. Okay. Okay. Um, okay. Is this too much information in these slides? No? Okay. 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 So that's the affliction. So we have our terms, we're agreed on our terms, right? So the first one, when we go back here, see attachment craving. Let's talk about what that is. Okay. Um, okay. We have to have our terms. Okay. That's like we're talking about love, right? So attachment and craving, what happens is, okay, we have that perception, those three things that go on. Okay. And unfortunately, we don't just stay there. Sorry. Okay. We have this go on. And then we have this go on. And with every sensation, then there's not every sensation. Then what happens when we get, let's say, angry or get attachment, you know, you suddenly realize you don't have any ice cream in the house and you just ate that salty Thai food and you really need some ice cream. That's okay. So that's a sensation that's disagreeable. First of all, it's the saltiness, right? For you, it's a subjective experience, by the way. Someone might like that. But subjectively, you're having the sensation of this, the saltiness is neutral, right? but your experience is disagreeable. Okay? Whereas Cynthia loves saltiness. So it's the same sensation, right? So that's why it doesn't just stop with the sensation. Now we start elaborating. We start elaborating with these guys. Okay? Now, in the case of attachment, it over exaggerates a phenomenon's attractiveness. So in this case, uh, when you're eating the Thai food and you're really enjoying the taste of it, or you're meeting a friend, okay, and it's like you see this happening all the time where you get very excited. You haven't seen the person in a while, and you know how much you enjoy being with them. And you're going to go for a walk, and you have these good talks. There's this one friend that you can really talk deeply with. So that person's now is very attractive to you because again, going back to that sensation, this is part of it. Going back to that sensation, in previous times when you're with that person, she or he feels really good to you, right? You have a feeling of positive, and then this isn't interesting when someone they leave and then someone says, "God, that guy talks so much, I was going out of my mind," right? Isn't that interesting? And you say, "No, no, I love the way he talks," as if one of you's right and one of you's wrong, but you're both right and you're both wrong, right? Because when I'm talking with that person, because I love those kind of deep conversation, I love what he has to say. He's so knowledgeable. And so I get the sensation I have is agreeable, right? But then it doesn't stop there. Then the mind always does more. So then it says, hey, I think he's like, I really think he's one of the kindest person I've ever met. And I'm wondering if maybe he can come over again tomorrow night. Okay. All based on a feeling, but based on now that feeling has catalyzed as a catalyst for something else to come up, which is one of these things. Because if it's a feeling I like, it's gonna attachment and craving is gonna operate. Okay. Now, of course, those attachment and craving may be very slight. It might not be a lot. Or it might be, hey, maybe you can just stay a couple hours more because I really like that. So you start exploding because it's so good. Or maybe you start calling him or her on the phone and see if you can get together more often. Like that's how attachment, it doesn't stay static. That's the problem with these disturbing emotions. So so all of a sudden this becomes an emotional conflict. Attachment, no, sorry. Attachment exaggerates the phenomenon's attractiveness. Because if my wife doesn't like the way the guy talks too much, and I do like the way he talks, so I've over exaggerated his attractiveness. Okay, what I see as attractive too, by the way. And then you start wishing for it, okay? It's interesting, like if you with dessert, you start thinking about, oh, I had one, I really like those ice cream bars. And I realized I ate the last one tonight. I got to make sure I buy more tomorrow, right? And then you go through a day and you forgot to buy them. Then it leads, then one of these other afflictions arises when you finish dinner and you go to the freezer and you don't have any in there. What happens then? Not this one, right? Or, or if you have a strong interest, you jump in your car and drive down to the supermarket and get it. That's attachment. Okay. But it over exaggerates the quality or the attractiveness of a phenomena. And the sad thing about attachment and craving is they just produce more and more discontent because they don't last. Okay. You think about addiction, and I'm not saying this is what addiction is, but you use addiction as kind of an example or a metaphor. the high is so good, right? But then it produces an experience of discontent, and you need more. Okay. So attachment and craving develops out of a misconception of an object as more attractive and agreeable. So now we're going to the root of our problem, which I'm not going to talk about tonight, but this is what is called ignorance. Okay, I mean, it's such a big topic. I'm gonna deal with it separate, you know, give it its own time. So, but the point is, the mind in that thing. Uh, Sorry, keep going back and forth. I should organize them more. So when you have these, so what happens is there, there, and then there. Okay, then you go there. Oops, no. Then you go here. So it doesn't just see that omnipresent one. That's the feeling and discrimination. That's just the neutral circle that's going around on perception. But it doesn't stay there because now these other things are being activated. Okay? So if let's say you have a problem with giving up, I don't know, anything, you know, eating carbohydrates, you know. If you have a hard time, it's because of the reinforcing that the sensation you get when you eat a carbohydrate or sugar is that for you, that feeling is pleasant. And if it's pleasant, it's going to activate one of these root afflictions or secondary, well, root afflictions. Okay. Now, it could activate a virtuous mind, right? It could. And that's what we're hoping for. But our default, and this is the problem why it's called samsara, is it 99%, well, depending on how well you've trained your mind, it activates a root affliction. Now, the spiritual practitioner more and more has it activating his or her virtuous minds. We've had that too, you know, where you feel the stimulation of the carbohydrate sugar, and you go, wow, that's a really uncomfortable feeling. It's not really peaceful at all, you know. I'm not going to give it, I see it as a root affliction, and you do one of those methods that Zayla was asking about, or one of the other 84,000 interventions, and it transforms. So you can transform all of these. These are all in a way, all these afflictions are our teacher, because we cannot attain enlightenment without engaging with these, confronting, engaging, whatever you want to talk about, with these afflictions. You can't just suppress them like that, the method that we talked about. You have to engage with them in some skillful way that is concordant with your own style, right? Everyone has their own styles and their own personalities. Okay. So what happens with the mind once that sensation comes up of the ice cream or whatever it is, and we're talking about attractiveness, there's a false image that the mind projects onto that sensation and onto that experience and onto that object. Then we cling to it. Well, I think I'll have a second ice cream bar. Okay. Oh, I think I'll invite him over for tomorrow night as well. Um, it can be with a job, it can be your job as well. So I love, where you really get a promotion or you're in your position where you're really enjoying your job. It's and we believe that it's the task or the job that we're doing that we really love, or a career. But what we're doing is we're projecting a false image onto this thing that's actually neutral. It doesn't really have any qualities like that, because your good friend just quit the job because she hated it. Bad fit, right? Or working for somebody I love the way he's very commanding. He gives me direction, and then you project a false image that he's a very strong leader or boss, or she is a strong, and then the other person, oh no, I can't work for her. She's so uncaring, right? But it's the same person. Are they caring or are they direct? It's like, so then we cling to it. Okay. Then we cling. We actually begin to wanting to be, anyway, cling to our image. And it's just an image. And then we want to possess it. Meaning I want to make sure that I'm on her good side and I really like the way she gives guidance and maybe I can, go out to lunch with her, all that kind of stuff. And that's embellishing it within our imagination. We make it so great. It's all embellished in our imagination. And we can do that with people a lot too. Of course, new car or start looking for a car. I want to get an electric car. We start embellishing it, but not a Tesla because of Musk. And then we got to, so um, I just revealed my political leanings, didn't I? Sorry. Everyone knows them anyway. Okay. So continues. Remember, there's 6 root afflictions. We're just covering attachment. It's a mistaken conception that can arise toward any object that seems attractive. And it can arise towards one's own body. Yeah, I'm getting pretty fit, been working out. Okay. Or, I'm able now, I must be doing good because I can run 5 miles now instead of 4. And I seem that I'm doing it in less than whatever the timing is that you're trying to create. Yeah, the whole beauty industry, right? And the whole cosmetic surgery, all that kind of stuff. So, you have to be looking at that whole industry as something that with one's own body. This concept can arise toward any object that seems attractive, right? And one's wealth, one's wealth and resources. So, you're looking at your portfolio or you're looking at, how can I get a wage increase, right? Or you already have a certain level of resource, certain level of wealth, and then, it's attractive, but we're never satisfied, of course. We start worrying about if it's going to disappear and, if the economy starts to fail, but that's a different dynamic. But the point is how we become enamored with wealth and, we look at nice cars, we look at nice houses, we look at, we all have our own things. We don't have, a lot of people could care less about cars. Other people don't care much about houses, but you understand what I mean. Okay. Or clothes, for example. In social position, this is also a big object of to be attached to, how many, you also notice you have a lot more friends or you're happy with the friendships you have and you become attached to that and maybe the places that you meet with them or how you generate your social um, connections, whether it's through sports or through dinners or meeting up or going for walks together, but their social position, meaning, you maybe have a certain level of attention. I'm not talking about an un, a low social position that bothers you. That's more anger. Okay. We're talking about one that you have that you're really happy with, and attached to. And also the bodies and possessions of others, right? So attachment and craving often is mistaken for love and compassion. But if you to judge the difference between these, the results differ. Love and compassion never disturb the mind. So even compassion, for people, let's say in war-torn states or nations, um, if it disturbs our mind, it's not real. It's not real compassion. It's mixed with attachment or anger. Okay. Compassion would have the same feelings towards the victims as well as the perpetrators. Not the same opinions, don't mean like that, but the level of warmth towards one and the other is the same. That's real compassion. But when it's biased compassion, it's not compassion. There's elements of compassion there, of course. Um, but attachment and craving are what get in the way of compassion and love. And the results differ. Love and compassion results create a balanced mind, a content mind, an undisturbed mind. Doesn't mean you don't see the war and don't see the victims and don't see the tragedies. It's that the result of when seen with compassion is a sense your mind doesn't sway. It doesn't sway into disturbance. Okay. Whereas attachment always and love and attachment always eventually sways into, sort of a discontent. Attachment exaggerates where compassion and love see the actual qualities of the person or the situation. Okay. It's kind of like it's kind of like love, parents' love for their children. And I'm talking generally, or maybe, I find it very, very touching, and having three children myself, when I see parents who have a challenged child, you know, physically or emotionally or mentally challenged. I have a number of friends that have children that like are autistic or Downs, or I have one that has oh, it's a terrible physical disease. Ah, can't remember the name of it right now. But she's young. She's only well now she just turned 17, but she can't walk. What's it called? Somebody help me.
Cerebral palsy.
Thank you. Cerebral palsy. And I think about I just get amazed. She loves that girl in the same way I love my kids, and that's compassion and love. Okay, that's closer to what we're trying to develop. Jay, have you heard of? I can't pronounce his name, but he's in Australia. Anyone heard of it? I can't. He's got a Eastern European Eastern name, but he has no arms or legs, and his motto is no arms, no legs, no worries. Are you familiar?
I think I know who you mean, but the name isn't coming to
You
me.
have to look this guy up, you guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
can't
Yeah.
remember. I'm sorry, but if you just Google no arms, no legs, no worries, you'll find him. He has no arms, he has no legs, and he's like, wow. I mean, he's just shows up as so happy. He goes and he gives motivational talks to kids in schools and other places. So love and compassion are based on non-distorted awareness, okay, of what is real. That's the difference. That thing about, oh, I love you so much, that whole thing that's not based on what's real. They're exaggerating qualities. Their aims are also different, and this is a fundamental difference. With true love and compassion, it's concerning the welfare and happiness of others. And with attachment, it's one's own desires. Attachment always results in suffering. Love and compassion only increase well-being. So that's one way you can test yourself. They also develop closeness and warmth, and it even grows stronger without reciprocation. So you love in real, and we know this, real love and compassion don't expect a return. You actually get stronger without reciprocation because it only grows your love and compassion. Okay, I'm going to stop there. There's only one more. Okay, there's only more. Attachment and the three realms. Okay, that doesn't matter. But in experiencing of attachment and craving, we experience it when we taste with the taste of the past. So we're like, oh, that was so good. I wish I could have that again. I miss that experience. I wish I still had my house that I had before I, lost so much money, blah, blah, blah. Securing what is present. So this is where we hang on. I feel good right now. We hang on to it, but it's moving, it's changing, but we try to hang on. And that's attachment because nothing is fluid, nothing is static. And then attachment for something, desire for something to occur in the future, like you're really having a hard time. You've had a hard time, been through a rough patch. It goes on and on and on. And your mind more and more is just, God, I can't wait till this finishes. Maybe if I do this, maybe if I do that. And then you got to start spinning out on how can I create that future? Okay, it's 7:30. I'm not going to go over except if there's a question. I don't know. Was that useful? I don't know. I just did a lot of talking and lecturing and all that kind of stuff, but you guys are so attentive. Yeah?
May I
Yeah.
ask a question
Yeah.
on one of the slides? So the word over exaggeration. So I was just wondering why that is the word that was used, because isn't it that, so if conceptualizing is attributing an adjective to an object. Oh,
Right.
so
It's not only
so
that. It's not only adjective. When
okay,
I see your face right now, it's also through conception, by the way. It's a mental
right.
image. A mental.
So
Anyway,
it's
go
just
ahead.
for, yeah. So I'm just wondering, why is the word used there, over exaggeration? Does that mean that if I see something attractive, a hint of it, and I'm not getting attached to it,
Hmm.
but there is still that's still a conceptualization, right? So is the goal not, I guess, so there's still that hint of conceptualization, correct? Or
So
no?
this is a really complicated point because is everything neutral? It seems like everyone agrees that flowers are beautiful, right? That's just for specific, generally all cultures, they seem to think flowers are beautiful. Are they? Well, there is something there, and for the most part, that, well, in the case of a flower, gives a positive sensation to people, right? Yeah. But what we do two things. We really think inherently existent in that flower is beauty. That's not there. That's a conceptualization. We'll talk about that later. But then what I'm talking about is just on a very human, very practical level, we begin to exaggerate the qualities of the flower. Okay. Rather than staying just with the flower. Now, a very uh, as we advance, then you see everything. So there is something there. There's a flower, and there's a destroyed forest there, right? Generally speaking, almost everyone will look at the destroyed forest and not find it pleasant, say it's ugly. There is something there, and collectively, we have a collective unpleasant feeling. There is that. But the problem is we really believe that forest is ugly, and it's not. That we're projecting onto it, that label. And then we respond to it. Now, the forest is black and burnt and all that. Yes, you can't deny that. Even that, though, we don't see properly. And that's going to go into ignorance. But don't worry about that right now. Even the way we see the black forest or the red flower, we see improperly. There's something there, but what is there we don't see? One of my teachers, I love the saying, I probably, some of you have been in my class before. So what he says is, what we see isn't there. What is there, we don't see. So it's not denying there's something there. Okay, so I'm not giving you any homework because Dundubla is not here, so I won't get in trouble. But just try to reflect. See if you can, if you do have a meditation practice, what I would like to ask you to do is just try and watch that process of perception and then how it stimulates different emotions. Okay, they're two different things. And then try to identify whether it's an afflictive emotion or a positive emotion. And the way to define it is if it disturbs your mind, okay, if it makes the mind unbalanced, unrestful, okay? And then, Zayla, will you write that down so I don't forget what the homework was? Thank you. So we didn't motivate in the beginning, but important that we dedicate all this energy, that it's not just used for intellectual stimulation, but that this intellectual stimulation will increase my knowledge and increase my awareness so that I'm better able to help others become more peaceful and more awakened as well. Okay. Thank you very, very much. See you next week. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.